No, we're good. Yes, new people. Any thoughts? Feel free.
It was soul hydratingly refreshing.
Mm.
It was. It was very refreshing. Honestly,
It caught a small flash of the spark of love, passion, and creativity that I once had as a child when I made games for no other reason than making.
Wow.
Ooh.
yeah, that's valid.
Thank you, David.
For me,
I'm glad.
it was just really nice to kind of work with the people that ended up joining our team. I was only planning on working with Joe, and then a bunch of people were like, "Yeah, we're in here now too," and I was like, "Okay, that's a lot of people." Throw lily pads around, I guess. Like, I didn't know what to tell people to do because I didn't plan to have, pretty much the entire map done in 30 minutes. Like, having so many artists and only one programmer was kind of a problem.
You can totally see in the two projects that like one team had every single aesthetic
programmer only, artists only.
That was
kind
awesome.
of what happened there. That is literally what happened too. Like, honestly, people started jumping in halfway through, and like everything was done. And they're like, "I'm just gonna hang out now."
Oh right, because we got Luke, but not Anne. I remember now.
Yeah, yeah. Anne joined us.
You had Jackson on the map, baby.
No, it was really fun, and I actually really enjoyed it. I think, like
Jackson's Forest.
The time of.
Andrea actually roasted me yesterday because actually she watched your stream with like the terrain brushing trees plugin, and I have that. I totally forgot that I have that, but like my rudimentary duplicate and like shove the tree here and there and then like make a big group. She said it was awful compared to yours, and I said, "You're right.
It's because I'm a god."
That's true.
Yeah. Just yesterday I got like 3 people called me and were like, "Hey, are you busy?" And I'm like, "Yes." Very. But no, like it was just really fun to slam such a fun experience in an hour. I think one of the big things that my takeaway is it's like vibe games are really quick to make and are very fun to make, but player retention is impossible.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I was trying to make a game that lots of people will play, it wouldn't be fun anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can get deeper into some of those on some of the later specific agenda topics. So thank you for that, David. And actually, returning people, how did this weekend compare? There were a lot of different variables, like there were a lot of new people, and there were 2 projects at once. What are your thoughts on this compared to previous slams? These are my 2 most thoughtful people in the room, so we'll take 5 if when you get back to me.
What was the question?
How does this slam compare to previous weekends, given that there are some new people and there were 2 projects at once? What are your thoughts?
This one was not as fun as the previous ones because it was never really playable until the end, I guess. And then at the end, we didn't have any time to noodle with it because we had to jump and try the other people's games.
That's true.
That to me sounds like an issue of duration, or at least directed duration. So if you wanted to keep the 1 hour work period at hard limit and like declare that after that 1 hour thing, you must stop and do a playtest, but then like allocate additional refinement time after that. Because like
2 hours.
Because like if you said, oh well, let's just do 2 hours next time, we'll have the same problem except we'll spend 2 hours making something worthless, and only playtesting it once at the end. You know what I mean? Because you said, I obviously I didn't do the other ones, but you said that in previous ones, while technically you did aim for 1 hour, you technically like lingered and continued.
Yeah, we would have like in each one we had a playtest before the hour mark, which was valuable. But regardless, at the 1 hour mark, I was kind of like, okay, everybody play the game right now, and then we would spend another hour and a half like incrementally adding things as we saw them. So yeah, Josh, that's a super good point. We did not do that at all this time. The Fish team kind of did, but on a more drawn out time scale. The jam of it was over, I think, when the 1 hour struck.
Yeah, it's like a different phase after that hour. After the first hour, at that point, it's like it gains this energy where we're continuing to work on it because we've built up all this energy and because we're continually inspired to refine things and add things, and we just find a natural point to stop working on it when we're done after another hour or so.
Yeah, with Fish, it kind of was wrapped up towards, I want to say, like late Sunday, is like when we stopped adding things and just called it fine. And then on Monday, I added some shit just to, have fun, which was the Tire Interceptor, because I was just hanging out with Jen in here and talking. And we were just shooting the shit and
That's awesome.
doing that. And, yeah, just
Joe.
have a little bit of fun.
Weigh in, Joe.
What's the question?
The primary question that I want to hear from you is very general. How did this compare to previous jams? And then we can chase the secondary thread of duration and how that would affect, or perhaps directed duration. I think that's a great term to use from David. But yeah, first off, just what are your thoughts generally? How does this compare to a couple weekends ago?
This has been my favorite one yet. In terms
Whoa! Bomb from Joe.
my personal experience. And I also feel like the Fish team had a lot of fun. I was also very focused, so I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But
No, there was, like, after the first half hour, it's just fun.
I also think that this is our most our best received game in these 1 hour jams. Like, I think it's sitting at
It was like 60 favorites last time I checked and like a couple thousand players.
33 thumbs up, 5 thumbs down.
Goal!
I ran ads for it, and I discovered there were even a couple people, 3 people in the server the day after the ads had finished, which is interesting.
Some people just want to fish and vibe.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about this one is that we kind of made contact with players in a way, because I'm interested in learning. I get a lot from these jams, but one of the things that is most valuable to me is doing experiments on players to know what's fun and kind of see how they react to certain features being present. And here we created something that's decently enjoyable. So it was possible to do those experiments. And that's why I went back to it Saturday and Sunday, adding a few more things.
Like grabbing.
Yes, like grabbing.
And a leaderboard. And
And the leaderboard.
I have 69 catches.
I'm very excited about building up a bank of
Nice.
assets that we can reuse.
Yeah.
And systems. Like the things that I added Saturday and Sunday are mostly for that. There's the bubble chat sounds, persistent leaderboard.
The bubble chat sounds amazing. Must have.
Yeah, and I also made it a bubble from Winlight, one of the bubbles I put together for that.
Nice.
So it's a bit more bubbly now, which is nice.
Josh, do you think that the your loss of steam around the playtest would have been different if we playtested our game first and your game second?
If you lost Steam, you can just download it again from www.steam.com.
Stop.
That's a good question.
steam powered. Yeah, you're right. It is steam.
Not necessarily. I think part of the problem with Save the Princess was it was just a bit of a lemon in outcome because it wasn't playable throughout. I think that's largely because I made an ambitious decision to make the tower round, and that faced a lot of complication.
And
if
and
we just
to
made
use
the tower square,
union.
if we just made it square, then it would have been so much easier.
Probably so, yeah.
That is what we should have done. So, like, I spent a lot of time just solving problems related to the tower being round, and not a lot of time on gameplay.
I think something else may
Well,
have...
to be fair, like the only gameplay was that stupid thing I added at the end that just kills everyone to make it round based.
that was huge.
Gameplay.
That was a key addition.
I think
that came in clutch.
Save the Princess was.
I started
good
on that with
I
10 minutes to spare.
I think it's the most objective-based game that we have made so far.
Yes.
Like, there is clear win.
Mm-hmm.
There's clear competition. So
And there is an extremely clear sound that plays at a reasonable volume.
I think another thing that lended itself to the lemon experience that we ended up with is that maybe this is wrong, but the fact that we had pretty much entirely programmers, there was less of a visual sense of progress, whereas with Climb the Hill for Admin, it was kind of like you can see when the hill is built, and when that's built, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, let's test it out. But with this tower thing, like, there was no clear point at which the tower was going to be done, and there was less, like, we also didn't make any key decisions on, like, what is your relationship to the princess? Like, are you trying to, like, rescue her, or is she actually, like, evil, and does she kill you? And so I think that I definitely needed to scope down on that decision, and David's addition at the end there was perfect, of just like, hey, touch the princess and it's over, and then do it again. Like, then it became an obstacle course, and obstacle courses are just fun. And so I think at the end of the day, and there's, I want to talk about specifically.
Made the Pistons.
Yeah, that was huge too. But I specifically,
I
want to talk
Except
about
for the ones at the top layer that push in and
yeah.
because I rotated them incorrectly, and that's literally how close to the wire I was making them.
Yeah, but I think that if I had to pull away a key learning from Team Red, it's take the concept and go. Like, there's not enough time, and even though we said this last week, like, there's not enough time to deliberate on your concept. Like, sure, getting creative is fun, but creating is also fun. And just making the obby ended up being awesome to watch. Like, the first person that gets to the end, boom, it's a win. And so if we had nailed that from the beginning, like, it's an obby, you get to the finish and it's done, then I think that we would have had a much different process and a much quicker time testing than we did. But I think that this is a separate thread from, like, how can we possibly structure this to maintain more fun? Because I also agree that, like, as soon as we jumped in and play tested Fish, like, I didn't want to go work on Save the Princess again. Maybe that's because it was just a bummer, but I think that the structure lended itself to a sense of finality, like, hey, this is over.
I also just thought, like, the game was finished. I mean, how long did we play it for? Like a half an hour? I mean,
We played it for a solid 10.
that's like a
minutes.
that's like a 15.
Some
That's
time,
like
yeah.
a 50. That's like a 50% return on investment.
Yeah, in the past, most of the adjustments that we made after big playtests were tuning. So, like, for Survive the Disasters, we wanted more meteors, we wanted them to fall faster, and then relative bug fixes here and there. I can't really think of anything that I wanted to add to the Princess game.
Zombies that didn't kill each other and actually respawned.
That's going to need to be a shared asset.
Yeah, honestly, the only thing, like, I felt like Fish needed was just a bit more on the refinement for the mechanics. And once we got the leaderboard and the grabbing in, there we go. There's a goal. It's, get more fish or stop at a funny number.
Yeah, okay, so let's shift over to Team Fish. I'd love to hear about your experience and specific learnings that you would take away from the gameplay of Fish and the process of building it.
Joe, do you want to go first? Ah, you bastard. I'm actually in the game right now, just flying the TIE Fighter, the TIE Interceptor, because it's fun. You guys should hop in game and play it and just fly, because it's actually really fun to fly this thing. Once you get a hang of it. But one of the key takeaways I have is that having too many artists is a problem. But at the same time, we blasted through our map in 30 minutes and had pretty much the entire thing there, and then it was all refinement from that point forward. And then Anne kind of helped by adding some extra mechanics like, interact buttons and stuff to sit down and grab like a marshmallow, stuff like that. We just kind of had a little bit of fun towards the end. Just like, we could make this extra fun. How about extra radios? Radios at every place. What if we remove the radios at the gazebos, move those here and here and here? Stuff like that. It just kind of helped make the experience overall. But it's just an experience. There's not really a gameplay loop or anything. It's just, you got a fish. Proud of you. And that's it. So I think there could have been some improvements made on the gameplay side and like planning a gameplay element out, but we pretty much just had a quick 2-minute conversation and they just went. And that was it. Which is all we really needed.
That was nice for me because the building was very decoupled from the gameplay. So I didn't talk to anybody past minute 5.
Yeah, pretty much you were just quiet the whole time.
Yep. Which is nice for a vibe game. I guess you can't do that for every game.
Yeah, this was just kind of let's just have a little bit of fun, because I was only expecting us two to be working on it. So I wasn't expecting, a bunch of artists to be like, oh, let's make that. And then, be pretty much done with the art side in super fast time.
Be interesting to make a first-person shooter. I wonder if you could get the same perk of decoupling the building from the programming there.
It depends on the first-person shooter. If it's just like a standard walking around, boots on the ground type of shooter, yeah. But if you're like having fun with it, you gotta do like jump pads and shit like that.
You can probably remake paintball pretty easily like that.
Yeah, but
Paintball
the problem is if you aim for a sufficiently complex game, like at some point you're gonna want to have some kind of centralized system from which everything kind of hangs out, and then nobody can do anything until that centralized system is done, and only one person can make that. So like, I mean, there are ways you can avoid having such a control, cortex, but typically you're going to end up with some kind of janky or, like obviously jammy game. You know what I mean? Like some games just smell of jam.
I think that's sort of the acknowledgement with this, is that at least at its inception, all the games will be jammy. But Dirty Dan has blessed us with your projectile system.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, there are certain games that will never be made in this. There's certain kinds of games that will never be made with this.
A standard FPS, you could probably do like a paintball style, or like, honestly, laser tag. Like,
That'd be fun.
That'd be a fun one. I actually had designed that in the course of 2 weeks before, when I knew literally nothing about how to program or do Luo whatsoever, and then 2 weeks later I was like, I got this. So like doing a laser tag would be pretty easy.
So on that thread, I want to investigate what happened, which is you guys a few days before were like, "Wait, let's make a fishing game," and that's awesome, and I just want to hear thoughts about that. That like it was very organic, and I see that happening a lot. It's going to happen again this weekend. I know Quinty and Adrian are planning on doing something together as well. It's going to be a little more pre-planned. So if that continues to rise, I'm curious what place the prompt system has, the solicitation of and voting on prompts. Do you guys like how we did it, where and we can continue this path where we'll just say, hey, every weekend Team Green is going to do a prompt, and you're free to self-organize something else, but if you just want to like jump in and jam out for an hour with no stakes, then you're on Team Green. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, but also prompt voting in general. Now that there are more people, do we still want to vote on the prompts? Should everybody submit one prompt from which a single is randomly selected? Or should we nuke the prompts at the beginning of every week so that we can get a fresh batch? Because right now there's like 3 weeks worth of prompts in there, multiple people submitting multiple prompts. There's a lot of different ways that it can go, and I'd just like to hear general thoughts on that.
I think the prompt system is valuable. If I had total dictatorial control, I would say that I don't like that teams can self-organize things. I think it would be way more intriguing to get multiple teams' takes on the same theme. but I come from a background of much more traditional game jams.
See, I do too. It's
And
just
this
that was
isn't necessarily that, so like I don't hate it, and I'm only one small piece of this, but I just want my opinion to be known.
Thank you.
I definitely think you should nuke the prompt voting every week and let each person submit only one, because I'm going to continuously submit Lords of Nomoreal style RPG with bloated leaderboard every single time until it gets picked.
So honestly, for me personally, I like pick from a hat. Like just a bunch thrown
random,
in and then pick from a hat and you go.
Yeah, but then you get like somebody who wanted to, like someone who put in a low effort prompt just because they wanted to participate or they felt obligated to, even though they didn't have like an idea that they were super passionate about, and everyone ends up being stuck with a prompt they don't like, even the guy who put the first prompt in. Because that used to happen at some of my college jams. They were just like, well, why would you put this prompt in? Well, we had to put a prompt in. Okay, I mean, yeah, I guess so.
Do you think that's solved by not requiring anyone to submit a prompt?
That's possible.
It can
We
be,
just need to
especially-
make it clear that people don't have to or feel obligated to, or even more than that, make it clear, like, if you don't think you have a good idea, please don't put a prompt in because it could ruin the jam. But that could also be alleviated by just having less allegiance to the prompt, which might be the better solution overall.
So, David,
Sorry, I'm autistic. I like structure.
Structure's fine.
I'm interested in the two things you said, which was that you want to keep submitting this one prompt until it gets selected, but you don't like the self-organizing, which I understand. But like, how would you feel about just trying to self-organize that next weekend?
I would feel fine. I think the reason that I hold both of these opinions simultaneously is because I would like to be on a team that makes it, but I would also like to see a team without me make it. Because I think that it would be really interesting, because I feel like that particular prompt is going to create a window into a past and into the past, because everybody on Roblox has played that crappy left-click RPG with the super bloated leaderboard before, or at least people who've been around.
I don't know
long
what
enough.
you're talking about,
I've been around
actually.
for 13 years and I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
I sort of do. I'm not confident in my interpretation.
So the gameplay is like this: you spawn in this big world, right? And there's like zero direction, and you have like a stick as your only tool. And then in the leaderboard, it's like level, EXP, strength, intelligence, dexterity, and it's just like consuming half of the screen because the leaderboard shows all of the stats that an RPG would have for each player, and gold, obviously gold is there as well. And then throughout the world are basically zombies with more health and more damage with different skins and different size models. And you go out and you left click the zombies you can kill, which you might be called goblins or whatever. And then once you've leveled up enough, you go and you start clicking the zombies with more health and more damage. And you just keep going. And eventually maybe there's like bosses, but they don't have any mechanics. They're just bigger zombies with more health. And like Lords of Nomoreal is like, or like Tales of Range's Cape. Maybe you've heard that one before.
That one I've heard.
I've heard of him,
I've
but I
definitely
don't think that I've
seen-
played either.
Yeah, I don't know these specific titles, but I've definitely seen.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Stravant made one of these, and like the way, and this was like the Stravant made one of these because he figured out a way to save data before data persistence was added, before data stores. I'm pretty sure he did base 64 encoded passwords, if I remember correctly. But like he made one of those games, and it would let you save your stats. So I don't know. I have a weird nostalgia for those games, even though they are like objectively a crappy experience. They were just like the it's like Progress Quest game. You're familiar with Progress Quest? It's like the quintessential watch numbers go up game. It was made satirically because the guy who made it saw these games that were ostensibly about watching numbers go up, so he made a game that is literally just watching numbers go up. And ironically, Progress Quest became extremely popular.
As these things do. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Interesting.
So, sorry, all that to say, I would be really interested to see how other people remember that genre. Because I would remember it differently than perhaps another team. And, like, your spin on it. Because maybe you made bosses that actually do have mechanics. Ooh. Or
In a 1 hour
something
jam?
like Maybe.
Not enough peanut butter to go with it.
Um,
Don't encourage me,
Joe, what you
please.
This is one learning from Fish, is that I wouldn't count on having more than one feature per scripter successfully implemented in the hour time span, unless it's very small.
got?
Yeah. Honestly, also
Like-
with like the self. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I only worked on the fishing rod, and I
Well,
spent.
joke's on you. I made pistons and the endgame loop in Rescue Princess, so
Yeah. I spent the entire time working on the fishing rod, and like I started out with an idea like, oh, you're gonna cast it and then like wait, and then we'll have the bobber like bob up and down, and then you click when that starts happening, and then pull the fish back. But I just had to cut the scope repeatedly down to the point where it was just a sword script.
That was insane.
And
where you could
I love
actually
that.
still deal damage to each other. Did you remove that?
Unfortunately.
I set the damage variable to 0. It still has a sword script in it, so that you cast. So you do the cast animation.
That's jam philosophy. I love it.
Look, if I can't murder my fellow fishermen, what's the point?
Is it really fishing?
The catch is actually how many times you've murdered everybody else in the room.
So it
That's how
took
real fishing is.
that feature was blocking us testing the game. It was blocking the main mechanic, and it took like 40 plus minutes. I really only had it working towards the
Last like
very
10,
end.
15.
Yeah. Where was I going with that? I don't know. Point is, you can't rely on scripted features unless you have a bunch of people doing like one feature, their own feature in parallel, and they could polish it.
Yeah,
In
that was
1
super
hour.
true for Survive the Disasters. And
Yeah.
Climb the Hill for Admin, pretty much. Dude, that hour flies by fast.
If it was a 2-hour jam, I think you could kind of
Yep.
get that.
Okay, so
I
let's
spent
talk about
40
that.
minutes. I spent 40 minutes of the hour just fiddling with physics constraints on my pistons.
So, yeah, okay, so this is a question that we ask every time, which is, what did we spend time on that ended up not contributing to the game?
Well,
Circles.
Circles.
Solid analysis. What did I do? I didn't do much. So I tried to turn off the zombies from killing each other, and it seemed to work. And then for some reason later, it did not work. There was either a regression or my fix just wasn't actually a fix in the first place.
Did you forget to commit your script?
No, I did commit. But
Are you
maybe
sure?
I didn't. I am hesitating now that you asked.
Maybe
so that I
maybe you committed after copy pasting.
I'm not sure. But anyway, that was one thing. And then the selection of the princess took a very long time, but it ended up just being the sandwich. It could have just been a black part that says princess, and nobody would have batted an eye.
you could have made it a dummy that's T-posing,
Right.
and that would have been way more fun. But a sandwich works. I think on Fish, like for the most part, the artists all kind of just we were talking and working all at the same time. Like there really wasn't like much wasted time because it was the art side, and we pretty much had everything by 30 minutes. Like everything key at that point. We had the bridges, we had the layout, we had the water, we had the mountain pieces. Like it was all there. So after about the 40-50 minute mark, once we actually had the fishing pole, we were like, yes, let's throw more things into the fishing folder. And someone threw a zombie in there.
Oh gosh. That was horrible.
That was the awful experience.
That was hilarious. I think that was my idea.
I'm pretty sure you threw that in there, and we all
Yeah, it
named
was your voice, Joe.
I can't wait to do one of those where all the sound is voice recording.
The one thing is that is going to be a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
That's not a jam game because you have to plan out every sound when you have that requires so much planning to get it to do it right, because
That's
you
fair.
also have to account for asset time, you have to account for like moderation time, you have to account for audio editing time. Like for me to do
Editing. What do you think this is? Professional?
That's true.
you have to account for audio editing time. I will kill you if you do not.
Nah, man. Record, chop on both ends so that there's no silence. Straight upload. Let's go.
That's,
Easy.
it's a 1 hour jam.
Noise correction, click removal. What do I look like?
Click removal.
Welcome,
No.
Sigmund. How are you, my friend?
What's up? I'm good. Looking forward to hear what you guys coming up with here.
We got some very good insight already. We're currently discussing what did we work on, but I think we may be at the end of this thread. What did we work on that was not a super valuable contribution to gameplay? The two things that I really want to chase are self-organizing and prompts and that relationship, and then slam duration, because a couple people before have mentioned, and David, I know you were interested in this, is like a 2 hour jam or maybe a 4 hour jam. There's window for longer jams, especially because they ended up being longer anyway the first 2 times. Like they ended up being about 2.5 hours. So I'm curious to hear anyone's thoughts on this. Duration and prompt voting. Let's start with prompt voting versus self-organizing. Or maybe not versus, but just like these two ideas.
With the self-organizing, that was just because I was like, oh, red, and clicked a button, and then I was red, and then Joe did the same thing, and then he's like, what game do you want to make? And we're like, okay, we're doing that. That's it. That just kind of happened. There was no plan to do that. I don't know what Joe's thought process was, though.
I joined because I saw Ashley on Red, and I wanted to work with her because I have known her for a while now, but have not actually worked with her, and she seems good. And my experience was, I was not disappointed. I was very blown away, actually.
About which part blew you away?
Just, you executed very well.
Very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
Well, to be fair,
It
I
was-
had assets already. If I had to make the assets, it would have been a whole different ballgame. It would have been like 45 minutes, and then the map was done.
Wow, Ashley, you have had a lot of usernames.
Mm-hmm.
This
Like,
is like
I was
$70 worth of username changes.
It's more than that. Okay, is that DevX $70 or like purchase $70?
DevX.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about accurate.
All right, back in.
I want to
back
like
in,
clear
back
all
in.
those, but yeah.
you got, Joe?
Sorry, I was just curious to see if I recognize one of your last usernames.
Where's my super suit or Marine 9 would be the two. Anything else, probably not. Or Creaty. But like with Fish and Vibe, like fish, like the plan was trees, forest, let's go. We use the same
Lake,
regular base
probably
plate
important as
yeah,
well.
obviously. Rivers and lake, but we used the regular base plate, just turned that to terrain, painted the river, painted the lake, painted a pond, added some mountain pieces in the corner, and then brush tooled a bunch of trees on it. And then spent the next 20 minutes just painting in the other textures instead of all grass to help give it that life.
So the question on the
I started
table is self-organize versus prompt selection, and our thoughts on that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I started brainstorming in the Team Red channel because two reasons. One, I wanted to do something that you and I both like, because it's a lot easier to pick a game subject that 2 people like versus 8 people. So, and I wasn't really feeling super inspired by any of the, I mean, I would have worked on any of these other prompts, but I don't know. I just wanted to understand what overlap of things that we're both really into exists, and pick something from that. So that is why I started brainstorming.
Yeah, like our entire self-organization came down to just us wanting to make a game together. Like we weren't planning for other people to join the team, and then you know everyone was like, "That sounds fun," and went and joined us. And I don't know why.
Yeah, that was really interesting to watch. So given this, that you have now self-organized one, would you be more interested in the future in self-organizing again or going along with a prompt?
It depends. If it's like assigning team members, I'd be okay with prompt, but otherwise I prefer self-organization because.
What do you mean
like,
by
I'm an
assigning
organized
team
person.
members?
So like if you were to be doing prompts and like picking a hat, and let's say we did 4 team members per thing, you could be like, these people are on a team, go, and do that like the first 20 minutes before the game jam, just assign teams and break out into sessions there. I think would be like the best option if we were to do the prompts. I personally prefer self-organization.
Gotcha. And is that because of the people, or
Partially because the people, like when you know who you're working with, you can tailor your experience and like what the prompt is to ensure you get something you like, and like make sure you're working on something that you think at the very least you'll be able to finish. Like with the fish game, like between Joe and I was like, yeah, we can do that. We'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true. We also did we kicked around a bunch of
Okay, Joe. We kicked around a bunch of food.
Yeah, we kicked around a bunch
Misclick.
of ideas.
misclicked on the wrong thing. I'm sorry. We kicked around a bunch of ideas, and we culled the ideas that we didn't think we could make good progress on in a good amount of time. And I think I'm trying to remember. I think Ashley had some ideas for some games that would be like a blacksmithing game where you make weapons, and that would be cool. But we just with one scripter, that idea is just not going to be implemented in an interesting way. So
we chose not to do that one because it wasn't feasible for the time limit with just us two.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm interested in doing a big jam. Like I will compromise on the topic so that we can get a team of 20 people.
I think it could be really fun if each jam we focus on a mechanic instead from now on. Like say, since we did fishing, we have a fishing mechanic that we can work with. Let's say next jam we have like stealth. Figure out just that's the prompt is stealth or something. So, and then by the end we have a bunch of these mechanics that we can throw into one game and make a shitty RPG.
My current vision is that since there are so many people that have such diverse interests and things that they want from this Game Slam thing, I think that opening up the prompt submission and enabling people to vote on them is very powerful, because there are a lot of people that just want to show up and do whatever it is. Like any prompt is a prompt, and anything can be a prompt. Any piece of music or any one word can be a wonderful, exciting prompt. And there are a lot of people that just want to roll up on Saturday and do whatever that is and hang out with their people and have an hour. But simultaneously enabling teams to self-organize is also super fun. So the way that I'm currently thinking about this is we will continue this prompt submission thing. I'll nuke it at the top of every week, and every person can submit up to a single prompt, but is certainly not required. And you get to vote on up to 3 of your hot ones. I like that. I think we'll keep doing that until it becomes a problem, until it breaks somehow. And there will always be at least Jackson doing the voted prompt. So you will never be alone, and that's always something that you can just hop in and join. And I think that I would really love to see one where nobody self-organizes and every single person joins one team doing this big prompt thing. And that's hard to like self-select something without a like voting process, because there's just too many diverse interests. So I would love to push for that this weekend, but I know there is already a team self-organizing. Either way, I see it organically evolving to be really fun. So maybe there are 9 people that do a top voted prompt this weekend, but I think that this past one was a good model for how it can continue in the future, because you guys got a lot of stuff, a lot of learnings from Fish. It seems like you had a great time, but you're both still interested in sometimes working with people that you know, sometimes working with people that you don't know, sometimes working on a prompt that you have specifically selected, and other times just being wacky about something random. What do you guys think about this new and or fish and non-fish people that did just go along with the prompt. David, you like?
I like it too. I mean, it
Why limit
honestly-
it to? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no.
Why limit it to one vote or one topic, one prompt per person, or 3 votes per person? I've been in situations where I don't know, posted one idea and then I had a better idea. But
That was so devious the way you said that. I have a better idea. That's interesting.
But-
So, propose
other
this to
people
me?
might still like the first idea better than the second idea, in which case.
So, the proposition is still nuke it at the top of each week, but allow unlimited prompt submissions and unlimited votes.
When you say nuke it, do you mean nuke the
The channel.
emojis or
Clear
the
out the
entire?
entire channel.
Clear out the whole channel. Yeah.
I like the
What
idea
about
of
the old
nuking it
ideas?
personally. If they're
Why
not
not
resubmitted, they
Yeah,
weren't good.
keep it clean.
If they don't get resubmitted, they probably weren't good.
Exactly. Like you can, if people can submit multiple, then just drop it in again. Like
Yeah.
I want to do King of the Hill so bad, so I'm going to submit it every week.
Why? So we can have a remake of that one leveling up game you made with Chris that one time.
Kingdom Chaos is definitely
Kingdom
not
Chaos.
definitely not the same.
Kind of King of the Hill, isn't it?
Sort of. It started out as that, and then in a classic Chris and Jackson fashion, we decided to add a billion different features from other games that were not super compatible. Anyway, nuke and resubmit. I think that's nice, just so that we don't collect that much dust in the channel.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy is there again. You know, you have people dropping 3 things in every Monday. Everybody's gonna love that shit.
We put a we
What you
could put a
could do is
restriction of
put-
like 2 or 3 max.
What you could do
submissions
is
a week.
put an hour slow mode on the channel, and then people can put in as many as they want, but they got to think about it each time.
That's interesting.
I don't think we have a problem of people.
over submitting.
Yeah.
We will.
I think so. If it becomes a problem, I think again, like I'm being very reactive about how this is
Inevitable.
being managed. Maybe it is, but I think it'll be fun to see what happens along the way to that inevitability, if it is so.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
Maybe.
This is good, great input from everybody. Thank you. So let's see, what else do we have? We have about 13 minutes here.
Do we want to do a 2-hour jam this weekend?
Yes,
Instead of
let's
one?
discuss duration. Yes, open floor for thoughts.
'Cause remember
8
that was something you wanted to discuss.
hours.
I do like 8 hours. I like 48-hour jams. I've got Red Bulls. I'm good.
30 day.
Actually, not a bad idea. Like finish a game in a week sort of jam. Like those are actually pretty good ideas.
I would
mean,
not be interested. Too long,
I would also not be interested.
personally.
But Josh, some of our most important games were made in week-long game jams. You and me, we made Eclipsis in a week. Remember how
That's
great
true.
that has been for us? Definitely not a source of any emotional trauma.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So,
I
no day a
also
week.
enjoyed it. Well, it's the initial premise of this whole thing is to be like a hyper casual, hyper low stakes event
Mm-hmm.
to just have fun and have friends. And
Fair.
if it's a week long or if it's even a day long, then that puts the stakes too high.
We did one.
Like
Our
8
very
hours
first
is probably
one.
longest.
Our very first one was super unstructured, and it was kind of like 2-ish days. It was like partially Friday and then a little bit of Saturday, and we all agreed that that was super suboptimal. And then James came in and just blew everyone's mind. He was like, "You guys need to do this in 1 hour." And so we did, and we tried it, and we immediately fell in love. And something that I
And
would
heating up-
loft up there is that the 1 hour structure is amazing in that it catalyzes interactions, and that if this is our only recurring event, that's fine, in that people can then self-organize week-long projects together.
Yeah.
And then you can keep posting progress in here, and we would love to see that. I'm interested in exploring a structured 2-hour jam, though, saying like, hey,
Definitely.
this weekend is actually 2 hours on the block.
I'd also be interested to see like 3 1-hour jams in one day, but with different like rotating teams. a round robin of game design. Do you know
So-
how fucking fun that would be?
Well, that's interesting, and it sounds similar but different to an idea that came up again in last week's retro, which was telephone jam, where you spend 20 minutes working on a game and then you pass it to the team to your left,
no.
and then they spend 20 minutes furthering that concept.
Please,
I
that
would
sounds
like-
terrible.
I would like to make a defense of higher stakes game jams. I realize that this is casual. Well, okay. Here's the thing. Some people like having higher stakes.
That's true.
Higher stakes are fine.
And I definitely think that higher stakes is a good thing, but too much of a good thing is also not good. I think it would be cool if we could plan out a longer term jam way ahead of time
Yes.
You'd be planning
with
2-3
this
years out,
crew,
probably.
because I think if I think we can win over the casuals, Josh. Not gonna name names here, but Joe. I mean, sorry, that's just a joke. By
Accurate.
I you know, the by lowering the barrier to entry, by making plans way out in advance so that you can prepare, because obviously like saying, hey, can you dedicate this weekend to this thing, is not going to play out very well. But hey, are you free for all of Saturday in 4 months, might be a little bit easier to pull off.
That far is a bit. That's.
I'm just spitballing.
But like,
No,
I think,
like,
like,
I'm
on
leaning on it.
occasional, perhaps semi-annual, if this particular organization plans to have any longevity, would be a semi-annual longer form, like full day to 2 days, like 8 to 48 hours would be super cool, and I would look forward to that all the time.
I think people. That's
I-
kind of
I
what
used to-
RDC Jam is for people.
David, I certainly am with you. And this has actually come up in discussion quite a few times. I think Jenny is particularly interested in building something, I'd say, like more real. And there was talk of like, can we have a calendar of sorts where you can like pitch a project to be placed on the calendar, like to occupy a weekend slot, and then you can recruit people ahead of time. Or maybe we do have a quarterly. I think Joe originally, when we were talking about this, Joe said a very similar thing, that like too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So if we're doing full-blown jams every weekend, people are going to stop showing up. And so
But 1 hour is easy to commit.
Exactly. And so if we have a quarterly, day-long, or 48-hour, I'm very, very interested in that. I'm very interested.
I think 1 day would be enough so that people can really like I'm down for that. But if it's like quarterly 2-day jams, then you're like 10 to 20 days in the year where you're just sitting down and stressing yourself over games.
Yeah.
I think a 12-hour jam might be a good sweet spot to start with, and we
I like
just
it.
start at like 10 in the morning on a Saturday or something.
That we could do
Yeah.
a monthly 12 hours.
And this is like the wonderful thing
well.
about this is that it's so experimental. Everything, we're just running experiments and then harvesting knowledge. Like that's exactly what we're doing right now in this meeting, which is beautiful. And so I like that. I like 12 hours as a first one. I like 24 hours as a first one. I would definitely be interested in bringing this up again at future meetings of this squad, or just like popping it in a text channel and seeing what people
Fuck it, let's
think.
just plan one and see what happens.
So the quarter is coming up in about 6-ish weeks. Yay? Yes.
I believe so.
And I think that would be excellent. I think
March 27th would be a good time.
yes.
It's a Saturday.
Yes.
Ever-present reminder that mid-February approaches.
They have a present reminder that my birthday is in a week.
So,
birthday.
happy upcoming birthday.
No.
So, let's do that. Let's say that we will run a long-form jam at the end of the quarter-ish. We'll pick a weekend. And I'm interested in hearing more about, is it competitive? Is it a prompt selection?
I don't think it needs to be competitive.
No? So we do what we do right now, except we just say, hey, we're going to allocate 12 hours now?
Yeah, I'd just be like,
Yes.
And we can continue to refine this idea because there will be many, many retros in between then and now. But I like it. I like putting it on the calendar and saying, we're going to do a long form. What do you think about tabling long form idea, 1 hour versus 2 hours for our short form jams?
I think 2 hours this weekend would be fun.
Ashley says 2. David
But-
says 2.
I'd be down for
I
two.
think 2 hours with a mandatory stop and play at 1.
I was thinking the same thing. If we are going to go 2 hours, we have to stop and play at 1. Joe,
You cut off there at the end, but okay.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. Josh, Joe.
Yeah, I agree that it would be a good experiment. And certainly with the playtest in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But it could result that an hour is just better also. It might be that 2 hours is even not fast-paced enough.
That is something to consider. And another thing to consider is, like, we can just do that. Like, there's a weird line between, like, what do we actually state and direct versus, like, what do people do? Because we said it was going to be 1 hour the last 3 weeks, and we ended up overdeveloping anyway just because it was fun. And so, like, if I send the calendar invite out for an hour, I think that's great because people, psychologically, they realize, okay, yeah, this is 1 hour, I can probably do this. And then if you want, you stick around and we'll jam out. And usually, like, people will sort of, like, leak out maybe one by one until eventually everybody leaves. But I think that just saying, like, at 1 hour we will do a play test, people will probably, like, if the game is fun, like happened with Fish, they'll just keep working anyway. And you do lose the sense of urgency because in this new proposal, there is, like, a 2 hour completion mark. And so you'd still be, like, grinding really fast up until that 2 hour. But with, like, Climb the Hill for Admin, I think was a beautiful example because that one to me was probably the most fun because it was so iterative. Like, we jumped in, we did the big play test at an hour, and then everybody was playing and on their own independently adding things in studio and then also coming back to the game. And every, like, 10 minutes we'd shut down the servers and check up all the new bug fixes and features and stuff. So it was really grand to be doing that. Did we just lose David? Did you say something?
David is gone.
Sorry about what happened before. Yeah, for sure. So I think that I am currently in favor of keeping the calendar invite at 1 hour and saying again, like, at an hour hard line, we're going to jump in and, like, cross-test the multi-team projects, but you're certainly free to develop. Because, Josh, I'm so glad that you brought that up earlier, that, like, the princess was a lemon. I think that's a hilarious word. I love its use in this context. But B, it's like, yeah, I didn't really want to keep going. Whereas with Climb the Hill, like, it was really fun. And with Survive the Disasters, it was also really fun. So we did want to keep going. Now, granted, everybody leaving and going to play another game is definitely a psychological break point that we hit. So I don't know. You know, it's a lot of unknowns, I guess. But I'd be down to basically do the exact same thing this weekend as last weekend and continue to think about it and see what happens. Because we don't have that many data points off of which to base our decisions.
I agree with all these points. It does give you a nice opportunity to evaluate how the game is going if you say it's an hour long. And at the end of the hour, you can decide to continue or...
So here's a question. Whenever Josh is done.
And I pretty much agree with everything you said. But yeah, it's still worth trying to see how 2 hours feels different.
The question I've got is, would the playtest be like 30-minute long playtest and that stops the clock and then there's another hour after that? Or would it be something more like you playtest while on the clock? Because that does change things.
Play test on the clock.
I like the fast-paced feel of that, you know, you can still add things. And I guess, like, that's another one of those sort of, like, weird, like, what do you say versus what do you end up doing, where it's like you could say, like, on the clock, but I'm not going to close studio. Like, I'm still going to be bug fixing while we're playtesting. So it's kind of like you're always on the clock. And it's just like, hey, at 1 hour, you gotta go in and do it.
Okay, fair enough. I know there's a couple of the ideas that were kicked around between Joe and I that I'm like, I want to do that anyway. Just
like different game ideas.
Yeah, some of the game ideas I was talking about with Joe. Like, I just want to kind of do those anyway. The blacksmith one was one of them that I think would just be fun to do, and as like a weekend project. With Curtis, I was planning on doing backgammon at some point. Doing a weekend jam for that, stuff like that, like small games that are just like, you know, kind of my favorites, because, you know, working on huge, massive projects professionally all the time is fucking tiring.
What up?
You know, when Light Bay, Mermaid Life, like all the games, you know, Fallout Cascadia, that thing's still not fucking out. I worked on it 6 years ago. Like that big bitch. Like it's been out, it's long. Like that's all my brain is on is long term. Like I got to plan out 9 months in advance so I know what's going to happen then. Like that level of like all the time. Whereas this is like, I want a fish, and then we make a fish game.
So
that's it.
We're right about time. It's been an hour. I think the call is, what is this weekend? Is it still 1 hour, or do we just say like, hey, it's 2 hours with a playtest at 1 hour? Personally, after hearing everything, I think I'm in favor of doing what we did last weekend and continuing to say like, this is an hour and we'll playtest at 1 hour, because people still have the option to continue working. Since we only have that one data point to evaluate this on, I'm interested in doing it again, seeing how we feel again, and then exploring a potential 2 hour jam the following weekend.
I agree.
Guys
I
like
think we
that?
should do another 1 hour for the next 2.
Defaultio?
Sounds good to me.
I love him. Joe, what are your thoughts, baby?
I'm open to anything, including the crazy telephone ideas, especially if they only take 1 hour.
Okay, epic. Yes, I will begin to hatch a goofy, perhaps rotating activity calendar that we can do in this thing.
I still think a round
I think
robin
that,
would be fun.
Sorry.
I think you ever just dream, you know,
The goofy
anything?
And then
are
you-
more like, I think if we do goofy stuff, I think we should aim it purely towards having fun and not towards producing
product.
anything valuable or even like learning anything.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
Yeah.
we will learn, but I would rather like design them to be fun.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
thought that's
Chocolate
what
fish
the
game
whole
we played
premise
yesterday.
was anyway. Of not worrying about making anything valuable.
Yes,
That was a
Full
premise.
server.
it was a large motivator, but I don't think that it was the only motivator, because I think in our discussion of what is the value of game jams, we recognize that it is collaborative. You got to learn from all these people, and you got to learn about game design very fast, but it's also super fun. I think that the low stakes thing is like a supporting foundation of both of those pillars. That if it is not low stakes, then you have a hard time learning from other people because you want to control them to make a perfect product. And if it is not low stakes, then you have a hard time having fun because you're stressing about it.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of. I usually actually get stressed in like 24-hour or 48-hour game jams.
Do you think that's
I-
because it's
like-
competitive?
Sometimes, like when there's a competitive factor, it does get stressful, because then you're like, I do got to be the best, or at least I got to be better than that
Mm-hmm.
over there. So that does add a level of stress. But with this, I was just like, fish, let's go, and that was it. It was great. You
I
know,
love
like-
our culture of like blatantly like misspelling things, like fish, jenks.
Okay, that was entirely intentional. That was entirely intentional. But like, there's just so many small games you could make in an hour or 2 hours to give effective prototypes.
Mhm.
Because all these really are, and then people could turn these into further games if they really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we could make an entire super large game about a fishing mechanic if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
there's
nice
lot
little
of that. There's a
hatchery.
professional industry called Bass Pro Sports, all about those games, you know, and they're really good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, you know, it's hard to get that level of like, I'm just gonna do this because.
Totally.
You know.
So we're running a little bit over here. We're spilling over. Are there any other thoughts that anybody has? Just want to voice, and I would love to hear them.
Fun. That's
Fun.
all.
Who's pumped?
I just had fun.
I'm looking forward, man.
Sigmund is finally gonna do one
Already hyped.
this weekend.
Let's go.
So
Let's
I'm
go.
excited, man. I'm stoked. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to throw this baby on YouTube, tweet it out. First, I'm going to watch it through and make sure maybe I'll bleep out some bad words or something. I don't know. Maybe.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to just bleep everything.
At one point, Ashley was talking about her project. And
I was threatening with knives, man.
Yes.
Not
So
sorry.
once again, thank you all so much for coming. I love each and every one of you. This is probably the best part of my week. Looking forward to Saturday. I'll see hopefully all of you there, huh?
Unless
Definitely.
something happens.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Peace and love, everybody. Have a great week. Until then.